It was the sound that woke me, a single, sharp crack like the snapping of a bone. At first, I thought it was thunder. But as I sat up in bed, I smelled it. Smoke. Thick. Bitter. Wrong. I stumbled to the window and saw the orange flicker dancing at the edge of the backyard, small but furious. My heart slammed into my ribs as I tore downstairs, barefoot, not caring about the broken glass I might step on. I threw open the back door, and there it was. The old shed was on fire. Not a cooking-out mishap. Not a forgotten candle. Someone had set it ablaze. The structure was old, wooden, and dry. Flames clawed up the side like desperate hands. I grabbed the hose and sprinted across the yard, spraying in panicked sweeps. My breath caught in my throat, not from the smoke, but from the thought of what was inside that shed. Boxes. Not just gardening tools. Not just holiday lights. But documents. Every financial record from the past 20 years. My son Brandon's college fund ledgers. Backup drives. And the file marked SH, my shorthand for suspicious history. It held printouts of strange transactions, questionable emails, school forms that didn't add up. It was my quiet archive. My slow-building case. The case against my wife. When the firefighters finally came, I was crouched on the grass, soaking wet, hands covered in ash. I told them I'd been storing old tax documents. I told them it must have been faulty wiring. I lied with the smoothness of a man who'd had practice. They left by dawn. And I was alone in the silence. Samantha hadn't even come downstairs. Not when the smoke alarm screamed. Not when the shed collapsed. Not when I shouted her name through the flames. She had taken a sleeping pill. Too much stress, she always said lately. Her shifts at the hospital, she claimed, were draining her. Admin work is just as exhausting as surgery, she once told me while scrolling through her phone at dinner. But the shed fire, its timing was too perfect. 2 nights before, I had finally decided I would confront her. The late-night meetings, the oddly labeled credit card statements, the lies that were so practiced they sounded like prayers, I gathered it all. It had taken me months. And now the evidence was smoke. But Samantha had made one mistake. She didn't know about the backup folder I had hidden. Not in the shed. But in my lab. In my classroom. The one place she'd never look. And she didn't know that the fire had confirmed something more important than any spreadsheet ever could. Someone wanted the truth buried so badly they were willing to commit arson. By the time the sun rose, I had showered, dressed, and left the house without saying a word. Brandon's room was quiet as always. He was 18, barely home these days, glued to his pre-med courses and his devotion to his mother. He trusted her blindly. And that, I realized, was about to break him. But first, I had to gather what pieces I had left. Because if Samantha thought the fire would silence me, she had forgotten the most basic principle of chemistry. Heat doesn't destroy truth. It reveals its elements. The faculty lounge smelled like burnt coffee and old ambition. It was Monday, just after third period, and I sat alone at the end of a long conference table, staring blankly at a printout of Brandon's college expenses. Most of the other teachers had left for the week-long spring break. I hadn't told anyone I was staying in town. Not even Brandon. Especially not Samantha. The fire was officially ruled inconclusive. No signs of electrical failure. No lightning. The investigator had asked if there were any enemies who might want to cause harm. I laughed. I teach chemistry. My only enemies are students who didn't study for the final. But inside, something deeper boiled. Because the fire wasn't random. It came days after I finally understood the pattern in our accounts. Samantha had been siphoning money, small amounts, always rounded, to various nondescript vendors. Luxury hotels. Wellness retreats. Payments labeled consulting sessions. I might have missed it entirely if it hadn't started impacting Brandon's tuition fund. The first withdrawal was for $2,000. Then $4,500. Then $11,000. Over 6 months, nearly $40,000 disappeared. When I asked Samantha the first time, she didn't even blink. "Oh, that's for Brandon's supplemental programs," she said breezily, flipping through her emails. "You know how competitive pre-med is now. SAT prep, campus visits, early applications, it's insane." She had rehearsed that answer. I saw it in her eyes. But I didn't challenge her. Not then. Why? Because part of me still wanted to believe. That same part that remembered the woman I met 23 years ago at a university lecture on bioethics. The one who stayed after class to debate Kantian theory and left a post-it on my car with her number written in red ink and the words, "Let's argue about morality over wine." That Samantha was smart. Electric. Ruthless in the best ways. This Samantha was different. Polished. Cold. Calculating. And absent. She was working late 5 nights a week now. On paper, she was the administrative coordinator for surgical services at Rivenport Medical. A fancy way of saying she scheduled procedures and handled the hospital's internal logistics. But no amount of logistics explained the new necklace I found in her purse last month. Or the plane tickets to a conference in Napa she never mentioned. Or the burner phone I discovered last year and didn't have the nerve to unlock. Not yet. The hallway outside the lounge creaked. I looked up to see Brandon step in, tall and sharp-featured like his mother, eyes wide with surprise. He wore his University of Dayton hoodie and held a takeout bag. "Didn't expect to find you here," he said, holding up the food. "Thought I'd swing by. Mom said you'd probably skip lunch again." I forced a smile. Old habits. He slid into the chair across from me, still smiling like a child who hadn't learned yet that not all fairy tales have noble queens. "You okay?" he asked. "You've seemed." "I don't know. Off." I wanted to tell him everything. About the shed. About the money. About the gnawing, suffocating feeling that his mother was someone neither of us truly knew anymore. But I looked at him, 18, idealistic, eager to please, and I couldn't. So instead I asked, "Do you know where your mother really goes on Wednesday nights?" He blinked. "Her mindfulness group, right? That wellness circle thing. She's been doing that for, like, a year now. She ever take you to one?" He laughed. "God, no. It's all middle-aged women and essential oils." I nodded slowly as if that answer satisfied me. But my mind was racing. Because Wednesday nights aligned with nearly every major charge on the account. Hotels. Car rentals. Dinners for two. And now the shed fire on a Wednesday. It wasn't a pattern anymore. It was a damn map. "I'm proud of you, you know," I said softly, my voice rough. Brandon paused, unsure. "Thanks. You're growing into a good man. Smart. Empathetic. You listen when others talk. That matters more than you think." He tilted his head, suspicious now. "Are you? Is something wrong? Are you sick?" I almost laughed at the irony. "No," I said. "Not sick. Just seeing things clearly for the first time in a long while." He opened the takeout and offered me a sandwich. I took it, unwrapping the foil slowly, my mind already drifting back to the burner phone I'd finally charged that morning. I hadn't opened it yet, but I would, because I had a feeling that what was inside would change everything. The phone was heavier than it should have been. Not physically, it was an old, dusty model, one of those mid-range androids people bought when they needed something quick and forgettable. But in my hands, it felt like a sealed vault. A dam waiting to burst. I sat at my desk in the lab, door locked, blinds down, the faint smell of ethanol still lingering from the morning's class. I'd been staring at the device for over an hour, my thumb hovering over the power button. I had known for months that Samantha was hiding something. I had suspicions. Evidence. But this was the moment it would become real. Irrefutable. I pressed the button. The screen lit up. No password. The lock screen opened instantly to a background photo of a wine glass and a hotel balcony at sunset. No SIM card. Wi-Fi off. But the messages were still there. And they started pouring in like acid on clean marble. "Caleb. March 11th, 10:22 p.m. Miss you already. Room 412 was perfect. Same time next week. Samantha." Of course. I'll say it's another overnight shift. Brandon's tutoring session gives us the full evening. "Caleb. I'll bring the Pinot you love. And wear the dress again. The black one." The name hit me first. Caleb. I remembered him. Dr. Caleb Monroe. Vascular surgeon. Recently promoted. Married, 2 kids. My wife had mentioned him casually over dinner months ago. "He's brilliant," she'd said, slicing into her steak. Bit arrogant, but in a good way. That good way had apparently become very personal. The messages went back for over 2 years. Hundreds of them. And they weren't just flirtations. They were logistics. Battle plans. Cover stories. Betrayals coordinated to the hour. "Samantha. Don't forget, I told Elliot I'm at the leadership conference this weekend. Use the back entrance at the Vineyard Inn, he's seen the front before." "Caleb. Got it. Don't worry. You're too good at this. I don't know how he hasn't figured it out." "Samantha. Because he trusts me. He still thinks I'm the same girl who used to write post-it notes for his lectures." My stomach turned. My ears buzzed with heat. But I kept scrolling. And then there it was. My son's name. "Caleb. How's Brandon handling the school apps?" "Samantha. Like a dream. Elliot's doing all the essays with him. Keeps him busy and out of our way. Honestly, I couldn't have planned it better. Caleb. Per guy thinks he's bonding with his dad. Meanwhile. Samantha. Meanwhile, I'm building something that actually makes me happy. That was the moment I stopped breathing. Not because of the infidelity. I had suspected that. But because of what she'd done with Brandon. Manipulated his schedule. Weaponized our time together. Turned my love for him into camouflage for her affair. I clicked through photo attachments. A hotel bed. A wine glass with lipstick. A blurred mirror selfie, her arm wrapped around Caleb's neck, their faces smug, victorious. Dates. Locations. Room numbers. I wasn't reading messages anymore. I was reading a script. A screenplay of betrayal written over years, starring the woman I married and the man who looked me in the eye every time I volunteered at the hospital fundraiser. I opened the Notes app. There was a single entry. If he ever finds out, deny. Make it about his distance. His obsession with teaching. Brandon will believe me. He always does. I closed the phone. The lab was silent except for the low hum of the ventilation system. And something inside me broke quietly like glass beneath snow. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a campaign. An occupation. She hadn't just stepped outside the marriage. She had razed it to the ground, rewired it to serve her convenience, and filled the silence with 1,000 tiny lies that I had mistaken for routine. And worst of all, she had dragged Brandon into it. Used him. Trained him like a pawn to believe in her version of truth. But pawns, I reminded myself, can reach the other side of the board. And when they do, they change. The hallway outside my classroom was empty, save for the faint clatter of vending machines down the corridor. Spring break meant the school was mine alone, just the way I needed it. I sat at my desk, staring at the burner phone one last time, then placed it into a sealed envelope and slid it into my briefcase beside a second envelope, a printed set of bank statements from the past 18 months, marked and highlighted. I'd already backed it all up digitally, uploaded the files to a secure drive, and labeled the folder something I knew Samantha would never be curious enough to open. Reagent Yield Tables 2002 to 2005. She never did care for chemistry. By afternoon, I was driving east out of the city, rain streaking the windshield, my thoughts sharper than they'd been in months. I passed the exit to the hospital without slowing. There was no point in confronting Caleb Monroe or Samantha in public. Not yet. That wasn't how this would play out. Instead, I parked outside a low brick building with a single black sign, Paragon Investigations. I'd gotten the name from a former student, one of the rare ones who took my advice and applied his lab discipline to law enforcement. He said this PI had a reputation for results and zero tolerance for melodrama. Perfect. Inside, the walls were lined with faded photos, cheating spouses caught in grainy hotel surveillance, embezzlers with blurred faces, attorneys caught taking bribes. This wasn't the kind of place you came to find hope. It was where you came when you needed proof. A man in his early 60s stepped out from a back room, dark blazer over a wrinkled shirt. "You must be Mr. Hart. Call me Elliot." "Carter Ashby," he said, extending a hand. His grip was dry, firm, methodical. "Let's get started." In his office, I laid out the envelope of printed texts, the photos, the financials. He flipped through them without comment, his face unreadable. I expected raised eyebrows. Maybe a question or two. Instead, he said, "You've already done the hard work. Then what do I need you for? To go where you can. GPS pings. Hotel records. Phone triangulation. Surveillance if needed." And he tapped the bank ledger. "I can trace transfers routed through proxy accounts. The hotel payments are just the beginning." I hesitated, then handed him a second, smaller folder. "And this is sensitive." It contained Brandon's birth certificate, copies of pediatric medical records, a handwritten note I'd been holding onto for years. Nothing explicitly damning unless you looked closely. The blood types, the timelines. "Do you think the boy's not yours?" "I think it's time to stop guessing." Ashby nodded slowly. "You want a paternity test?" "Yes." Quietly. "I need DNA from both him and Caleb. I can get mine easily." "I'll get it. And I won't leave a footprint." I stood, every movement feeling strangely deliberate. "I don't want revenge, Carter. I want reality. I've been lied to for so long that I've started to forget where my own truth ends and her lies begin." Ashby looked up at me, this time with a flicker of recognition. "You're not the first man to come in here with that look. But you're the first one who brought a dossier thicker than most FBI files." He paused. "I'll be in touch within 2 weeks. Maybe sooner." I left without another word. Back home, the house was too quiet. Brandon was staying at a friend's place, studying for his anatomy midterm. Samantha was on call again, and her car wasn't in the driveway. It gave me space. I walked room to room, looking at everything as if I were an outsider auditing a stranger's life. The family portraits. The souvenir fridge magnets from vacations we hadn't really enjoyed. The piano no one played anymore. Each object was a thread in the fabric of our marriage, and I finally saw how it had been slowly unraveling for years. In the upstairs closet, I found the yoga mat again. The one with the hidden seam. I unzipped it mechanically. The second burner phone wasn't there anymore, of course. But I found something else. A hotel rewards card. Still active. Under a different name, S. Holloway. Samantha's maiden name. She hadn't just been unfaithful. She'd built a parallel life. 3 days later, I received the email. Subject, report preliminary, heart case. From c.ashby@paragoninvestigations.com. Attached, DNA_triangulation.pdf. I didn't open it immediately. Instead, I poured a glass of scotch, walked into the study, and sat beneath the old framed periodic table my father gave me when I got tenure. Then I clicked. The first page was data, alleles, loci, percentages. The second was plain English. Conclusion, probability of paternity, 0%. Elliot Hart is not the biological father of Brandon Hart. Paternal markers consistent with sample provided from Caleb Monroe. I didn't feel anger. Not at first. Just an eerie scientific calm. A chemical reaction reaching completion after years of slow buildup. It was done. The hypothesis was confirmed. And now I had a decision to make. Brandon arrived home just after 6 p.m., still in his hospital volunteer scrubs, earbuds around his neck, smelling faintly of antiseptic and ambition. "Hey, Dad," he called, distracted, scrolling through his phone. "Mom's working late again. You want me to heat something up?" "Come into the study," I said. He paused. My tone wasn't casual. He knew that. I watched his posture shift, not defensive, not afraid, but confused. Like a student who'd walked into an exam he hadn't studied for. He followed me in. I closed the door behind us. On the desk were 3 things: a printed copy of the DNA report, the burner phone, and a framed photo of the 3 of us at his high school graduation, all in matching navy, all smiling. I gestured for him to sit. "I need you to listen carefully. No interruptions. Okay? I'm going to tell you something that will shake the foundation of what you think you know about your mother. About yourself. About me." His brows drew together. "Is this about the shed fire? Or a... No. It's about your life." I handed him the report first. "Start with that. Read the last paragraph." He unfolded it slowly. His lips moved silently as he read, eyes flicking down the page. Then they stopped. He stared. Once. Twice. Then he reread the last line. And something in him broke. What is this?" "It's a DNA test. Independently verified. Conducted with samples taken legally, quietly. It's not a mistake, Brandon. You're not biologically my son." He shook his head. "No. That's not possible. That can't be right. Mama. She's known. From the beginning." "No. You would have told me." I placed the burner phone in front of him. "Start scrolling." He picked it up slowly, unlocking it with shaking fingers. Messages filled the screen. Names. Dates. Hotel rooms. Plans. Deceits so casual it read like poetry. I watched his face crumble piece by piece. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Then finally, "She used me." I nodded. "She used us." He stood, stumbling back like the room had turned on its side. "All those nights she said she was working late, those weren't surgeries. Those weren't even meetings." "No." "And Caleb, he's?" "Yes." He ran both hands through his hair, pacing now, wild-eyed. "I trusted her. She was always there. She made me believe you were the distant one." "I know." He turned to me, suddenly still. "And you knew all this?" "I suspected for years. I confirmed it last week." "So why now?" "Because it's time you knew. Because the man you think of as your father," I touched my own chest, "has spent every year of your life trying to protect you from a truth that wasn't your fault." The room was so quiet I could hear the soft tick of the wall clock. Brandon's voice, when it came, was hollow. "What happens now? You decide. I've made my choice. I'm confronting your mother tonight." He looked at the phone in his hand again. "I want to be there." I hesitated. "Are you sure?" I believed her for 18 years. I think I deserve to hear her say it out loud. Samantha came home at 8:17 p.m., carrying a takeout bag and humming softly. She froze when she saw us waiting in the living room. Brandon sitting straight-backed in the armchair, me standing by the mantel. Her smile faltered. "What's this?" "Sit down," Brandon said, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "We're done pretending," I said. She didn't sit. She crossed her arms, feigning offense. If this is about the money again, I told you. It's about Caleb Monroe, I said. Her mouth opened, but no words came. I stepped forward and held out the phone. You forgot to delete your messages. Or maybe you thought I'd never have the nerve to look. She glanced at the phone but didn't take it. Brandon stood, his voice shaking. You lied to both of us. Every Wednesday, every Friday, every story about how Dad was the distant one. That was just to keep me close while you ran around with him. Sweetheart. She reached for him. He stepped back. No, you don't get to call me that anymore. Her eyes darted to me, then back to him. Elliot, you've poisoned him against me. I almost laughed. No, you poisoned your own son with lies. I just showed him the autopsy. Samantha stood frozen, her mask slipping inch by inch. No more excuses. No more role-playing. She saw finally that the game was over. I want you out of this house, I said. Tonight. You can't. This is my home too. No, it was. You forfeited it the moment you stole our son's trust. Brandon walked to the front door and opened it. Samantha didn't move. Then, finally, she said, He'll come around. He's still my son. Brandon's voice was ice. You should pray he's not like you. And just like that, she was gone. 2 months later, the house was quieter. Not emptier, quieter. The kind of quiet that wasn't born of absence, but of peace. Samantha's departure had been bitter. Legal documents were exchanged. Lawyers called. Caleb Monroe resigned from the hospital after a board ethics complaint surfaced, filed anonymously, but backed with evidence no one could ignore. Brandon moved back in with me for a while. We didn't talk about the DNA results much. We didn't need to. One night, I found him in the garage, going through old science fair posters. He picked one up, his first project. How Plants Breathe. His handwriting still had that childhood slope. You helped me with this one, he said softly. Stayed up all night building the model. I remember. He looked at me, really looked at me. You were always there, even when I didn't see it. We didn't hug. Not then. But something changed in his face. A softness. An understanding. Weeks passed. Then one morning, Brandon knocked on my office door. I got accepted, he said. Medical school? He nodded, smiling for the first time in what felt like years. Full ride. And I want to specialize in pediatric care. Kids like me. Kids who get used. I felt something warm settle in my chest. Not pride, something deeper. Something earned. You'll be a better man than either of them, I said. You already are. He hesitated, then added, I've been thinking of changing my name, dropping Monroe entirely. To what? He shrugged, but his smile deepened. Just Brandon Hart. I nodded, my voice thick. That sounds right.